थँक्स रोमा. मी थोडं मराठीत बोलेन, थोडं इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलेन, म्हणजे ओके, थोडा हिंदी भी ऑफकोर्स. पंजाबी आहे का? ओके. तो कारण बराचसं इकडचं प्रेक्षक जे आहेत, मोस्ट ऑफ द ऑडियन्स इज मराठी स्पीकिंग, त्यामुळे मी थोडं मराठीत बोलेन. हे संगीता, अमनदीप, पंकज आणि राधेश्याम यांची म्हणजे ओळख हिने करूनच दिली रोमाने. याच्यापैकी संगीताचं जे पुस्तक आहे आसाम अकॉर्डवरचं, ते अतिशय उत्तम आणि अतिशय इनडेप्थ आहे. अमनदीपची 3-4 पुस्तकं आहेत, मी फक्त एकच वाचलं आहे. आय हॅव रेड ओनली वन, दॅट इज पंजाब, या जर्नी थ्रू दिस. आणि त्यांनी अमनदीपने याचा वेध घेतलेला आहे, पंजाबियत, व्हॉट इज पंजाबियत, क्या होती है याचा. आणि पंकजचं तर मी एक छोटा कार्यक्रमही केलेला होता आमच्या यूट्यूबवरती, अंदमान निकोबार आयलंड्सवरती. आणि राधेश्याम जाधवचं पुस्तक आपल्या सगळ्यांनाच माहिती असेल तर ते प्रामुख्याने आत्महत्या, म्हणजे त्याची 2-3 पुस्तकं आहेत, परंतु एक महत्त्वाचं पुस्तक त्याचं जे आहे ते या ज्या आहेत आत्महत्याग्रस्त महिला, शेतकऱ्यांच्या ज्या पत्नी आहेत त्यांच्यावरती त्याने ते पुस्तक लिहिलेलं आहे. आणि त्याचा फोकस प्रामुख्याने एम्पॉवरमेंटवरती आहे. आणि पण त्याने केलेली एम्पॉवरमेंटची डेफिनेशन इज वेगळी आहे. हिज डेफिनेशन ऑफ एम्पॉवरमेंट इज डिफरंट. आणि आपण आत्ता त्याच्याशी बोलत असताना विल टॉक अबाउट दॅट. तर एक पहिली, आणि महाराष्ट्रामध्ये आता जर्नलिझम थ्रू बुक्स हे आहे. So basically, let me tell you that in Maharashtra, I think first such author was Anil Avchat. Anil Avchat basically explored Maharashtra like nobody else. No newspaper could do that. He actually traveled and interviewed not many what we say marginalized people, particularly Dalits, then nomadic tribes, then such other people, particularly nomadic tribes, Dalit, and such other actually marginalized people. And that the Maharashtra that he explored was totally unknown to the Marathi readers till then. After that, he actually opened a new avenue, you can say, or new area that actually helped so many activists to write their own accounts. Particularly one of them was, of course, this Lakshman Mane, who won the Sahitya Akademi Award for his writing. Another was, he is also my friend, Mr. Parth Polke, and such others. So actually, but Anil's book was more of a, he also traveled in Bihar, and his first book was Purnia, when he had gone there to work as an activist during the drought. And that was really wonderful. Now it has been translated into Hindi. And Anil's actually, this was, means Anil basically wrote about, his style of writing was not of our traditional journalism, but it was more penetrating, and he generally recorded what he saw and heard, and in that own language. For example, if he is writing about Shivsena's meeting, so he would describe the board as one word, Shiva, Made Vagato Tond, means between there is, you can find the face of the tiger, and then Sena. That's how he used to write. Anyways, so in Marathi, other than it, of course, there are a couple of books, but I think this kind of new journalism that Sangeeta and Amandeep, Pankaj, and of course Radhesham has done is altogether different. And it's barring, I think, Radhesham, they are really plain journalists, but Radhesham is more of a, Radhesham's writing has more of literary flavor, or you can say a different style. Anyways, so let's start with Sangeeta actually. So संगीताच बुक, म्हणजे संगीताने जे आसाम अकॉर्डवरती पुस्तक लिहिलेलं आहे त्याच्यामध्ये आसामी आयडेंटिटीचा जो इश्यू आहे तो मध्यवर्ती आहे. आणि त्याची जी आसाममध्ये मुवमेंट झाली 80 आय थिंक समटाईम इन 80s, yeah. Because I first went to Assam in 83, and since I didn't know anybody in Guwahati, so I just asked my autowala to take me to Praful Kumar Mahanta. And he took me there. And it was Praful Kumar Mahanta who actually put me in some university rest house. It was just on the bank of the Brahmaputra. Anyway, so that means, of course, I was too young then. And so ही जी मुवमेंट होती आसाम मुवमेंट, तर त्याचं एक नीट डॉक्युमेंटेशन खरं संगीताच्या पुस्तकात आढळतं. सो आय विल स्टार्ट विथ इट. आणि याच्यावरती खरं तर याची पण हजारिका संजय हजारिकाची पण अनेक पुस्तकं आहेत नॉर्थ ईस्टवरती, पर्टिक्युलरली आसाम. सो आय जस्ट स्टार्ट मीन्स विल स्टार्ट विथ संगीता. माझा प्रश्न असा आहे की हाऊ इट मीन्स वाय डिड यू ॲक्च्युली फेल द नीड टू document this? Because as I said, so far as the Assam movement and the whole issue, there are many books actually, not only by Sanjay Hazarika but others as well. So why did you actually feel to write a book on that?
Thank you, sir. This question is very important and fundamental to my whole journey is to become a writer from a journalist. You know, when Assam agitation had happened in the 80s, as you said, from 1979 till the accord was signed in 1985, I was a school kid. और मेरे फैमिली में बहुत सारे लोग ये असम एजिटेशन के साथ जुड़े थे, बहुत स्ट्रांगली जुड़े थे. और फ्रॉम डिफरेंट पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज एस्पेक्ट से, एक्टिविस्ट के हिसाब से, पुलिसमैन, यू नो, राइटर्स. सो आई इन अ वे वाज प्रिविलेज्ड टू हियर इन आवर ड्राइंग रूम कि क्या हो रहा था उस ज़माने में, उस टाइम पे क्या हो रहा था सब. जो उसके बाद जब मैं जर्नलिस्ट बनी, तब I began to think of that period as some sort of a, you know, कहीं हुआ था, because हम लोग सब move on कर गए. Till what happened, till the National Register of Citizens का जो update वाली जो time आया, और बहुत interest आया mainstream media में कि इसको report करना है, और जिसको जैसे वो आता था वो वैसे ही रिपोर्ट कर रहे थे. दिल्ली से जाते थे और कहीं और से जाते थे, उनको बैकग्राउंड कुछ ज़्यादा पता नहीं होता था. देन आई वॉज बाय देन वर्किंग विद द वायर, एंड आई वुड contradict also a lot of things and say no, ऐसे नहीं हुआ था. So, and then of course I was myself reporting on the ground. Then I realized that whenever you tell people कि ये कुछ हुआ था, so then they said कोई किताब है क्या, किताब है तुम्हारे पास है कुछ. So then I would give them some report, ये वाला report था, ये वो. Then I realized that there was no book. Okay, you talk about books. Sanjay Da wrote about militancy. We have lots of books in Assamese, even on agitation. There are like novels and all that written, short stories and all, but nothing in English. Nothing for the people outside the state to actually know what happened. And from the journalistic point of view, certainly nothing. Okay, people would read some sort of, you know, Nelly हुआ था, सती जेकब ने क्या रिपोर्टिंग करी, then संजय दा ने क्या न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स के लिए लिखा, वो भी मिलते ही नहीं रहे. मतलब किसी ने डॉक्यूमेंट ही नहीं करी, तो वो अगर किसी के पास अगर कटिंग होगी तो ही मिलेगा. So those kind of things. So that's when I thought that I should write a biography of Prafula Mahanta, who became India's first youngest chief minister. और किस हालत से, मतलब आप जैसे आप कह रहे थे, from the university campus से जाके सीधा chief minister बना, वो ऐसा इंडिया में हुआ ही नहीं था. तो I thought I know him very well, so I said मैं उनका वो लिखूंगी. And that's when I started thinking about it, and this is how I will tell this story. Penguin got in touch with me and said, why don't you write the book? and we got discussing, and then it turned out that actually, yes, they are more interested in NRC. So then where does the NRC thing come from? Is the Assam Accord. So it took me to the Assam Accord thing, and then when I went to the Assam Accord, think कि Assam Accord फिर हुआ ही कहाँ से? तो you have to go back so far, then I went back to partition. Then I realized that partition affected था असम, बहुत बुरी तरह partition affected था. लेकिन हमारे इंडिया में जो दिल्ली और ये सब में हम जब narrative सुनते हैं, partition narrative, ये खाली एक पंजाब का होता है मोस्टली, बिकॉज देयर वाज लॉट ऑफ लिटरेचर रिटन परहैप्स ये वो. और हमारे नॉर्थ ईस्टर्नर्स का तो एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है, मतलब हमें आप लोग के बारे में जानना पड़ता है, हमारे बारे में आप लोग नहीं जानो भी तो चलता है ना. सो हम लोग सब जानते हैं आप लोग के बारे में, बताइए कुछ पूछिए, आई विल नो एवरीथिंग. आई आस्क यू क्वेश्चंस अबाउट मी, यू विल नॉट नो एनीथिंग फ्रॉम माई प्लेस. सो दैट्स व्हेन आई फेल्ट दैट देयर इज अ नीड. जर्नलिस्ट तो हूँ मैं, जर्नलिज्म तो करूँगी, लेकिन किताब भी लिखना है. एंड 45 इयर्स में एक अंग्रेज़ी में कोई पब्लिशिंग हाउस ने सोचा ही नहीं कि एक किताब निकालनी चाहिए अबाउट असम अकॉर्ड. जब उनके आंखें खुली, जब अबाउट 19 मिलियन पीपल स्टेटलेस हुए, दिस अगेन फर्स्ट. सो दैट इज़ व्हेन आई थॉट दैट कि ये किताब लिखनी चाहिए, और ये हुआ. एंड उसके बाद मैंने 2023 में एक और किताब लिखा, दी एसमीज करके. दिस इज़ ऑल्सो अगेन फर्स्ट. हम लोग कुछ भी लिखते हैं ना सर, फर्स्ट ही होता है, क्योंकि अंग्रेज़ी में कोई किसी ने हमें मौका दिया ही नहीं लिखने के लिए. तो आई डोंट वांट टू बी सीन हियर और टॉकिंग लाइक अ विक्टिम. अब ये चेयर लिया है ना सर, उठेंगे नहीं. थैंक यू.
Another question that I would like this audience to know about what is NRC and what is this Citizenship Amendment Act, and what is explain the difference, and what is do they address the core issue of the Assam?
एनआरसी तो ये है कि एक 1951 में एक नेशनल रजिस्टर ऑफ सिटीजन्स असम के लिए बनी थी. दैट्स व्हाई असम इज़ वेरी, सिटीजनशिप इशू इज़ वेरी डिफरेंट, वेरी स्पेशल एंड वेरी प्रॉब्लमैटिक. बिकॉज एनआरसी का जब वो 1951 में जब भी गवर्नमेंट ने इशू किया ऑर्डर, वो ऑल इंडिया के लिए था, लेकिन कहीं हुआ नहीं. और ये 1951 में असम के लिए हुआ. तो ऑब्वियसली एक डॉक्यूमेंट है इनके पास, तो यू कैन ऑलवेज वेपनाइज दैट डॉक्यूमेंट ऑल्सो एनी टाइम दैट यू वांट टू. एंड उसके बाद एंड द सेंस ऑफ लॉस एंड दैट एंग्स्ट, जो असम अकॉर्ड के बाद अकॉर्ड में बहुत कुछ लिखा गया, उसको इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया गया, तो ये पब्लिक में, कम्युनिटी में था. तो ओबियसली वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में केस चला, और उसके चलते हुए ही ये अकॉर्ड को उसको अपडेट करने के लिए आया एनआरसी. एनआरसी मतलब 1951 में अगर आपका नाम है उस एनआरसी में, तो आपका फैमिली और ये वो आएगा. सो दोज कैन अंडर ऑल्सो ए वेरी डॉक्यूमेंट वाली प्रोसेस है. अगर आपके पास कोई डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है, तो आप मतलब इंडियन सिटीजन है कि नहीं, उस डाउट पे आप आ जाएंगे. पीपल टॉक अबाउट कि ईस्ट बंगाल ओरिजिन के लोग के साथ प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, विद अ लॉट ऑफ ट्राइबल्स हु डोंट हैव पेपर्स. ये वो लोग दौड़ते रहे. मेरे ही सिस्टर इन लॉ के साथ ऐसा हुआ. And people used to go, and my father went. He said, ये जो मैं जिस घर में रहता हूँ, ये पहला पक्का घर था, ये स्टेट का, मतलब ये टाउन का, और you are actually putting my daughter-in-law there. So it's like documents, and mostly women के पास documents बहुत कम होते हैं. So my request to all women, आप लोग documents अपना सब ठीक ठाक रखो. There are a lot of particularly the Muslim families, of Indian East Bengal origin, जल्दी से शादी कर लेते हैं. 18 साल में तो आप वोट करोगे तो आपका वोटिंग कार्ड आएगा ना, उससे पहले आपको शादी कर दिया है. आप पहले किसी का, मतलब आपका कोई पता ही नहीं है, घर में आपका बर्थ हुआ है, तो आपका कोई रजिस्ट्रेशन भी नहीं है किसी हॉस्पिटल में. सडनली यू बिकम द वाइफ ऑफ सम मैन, एंड देन दे सेड, अरे ये तो बांग्लादेश से आया. दिस सो मेनी केसेस, एंड पर्टिकुलरली इफ यू आर मुस्लिम, आपका तो हो गया. So this is where the problem is. And there are a lot of still those 19 million people are still stateless. There are a lot of politics being played in my state and my heart really goes out to them. But there is a legal fight and it will continue. It's a long battle. That's it. And असम अकॉर्ड का आपने मुझे वो एनआरसी और इसका एनआरसी वो डिफरेंस होता है, मुझे लगता है मैंने किया. अगर कोई सवाल कुछ आता है बाद में मैं आई कैन या और थोड़ा सा विकिपीडिया भी पढ़िए.
ओके, एक और एक सवाल है कि आसाम मूवमेंट में अगर आसामी कौन, ये जो इशू है वो काफ़ी ये रहा है, मैंने वेक्स्ड इशू एक्चुअली. नोबडी हैज़ बीन एबल टू डिफाइन, क्योंकि वो जो कट ऑफ डेट जो है उसके ऊपर काफ़ी डिस्कशन है. तो उसमें एक ऐसा है कि बिकॉज आई वॉज इन जोरहाट एंड वॉज टॉकिंग टू few people, they are running an NGO, so they said that cut-off date should have been 47 or something, because these basically ahoms they call it. Those ahoms are agreeing to 66, but our lands have been usurped by those Bengalis and outsiders from this partition. So and दूसरा सवाल ये है कि जो जस्ट एक्सप्लेन व्हाट इज़ द इशू ऑफ दिस आसामीज. एंड सेकंड इज़, पहले आसाम का जो आंदोलन था वो आउटसाइडर के खिलाफ था, as you know, but later it became anti-foreigners and now it has become anti-Muslim. So can you please explain this?
ये जो एसएमईज वाला में दैट्स व्हाई पीपल शुड बाय माय सेकंड बुक, जो बाहर बिक रहा है प्लीज़. बिकॉज वो एसएमईज वाला जो डेफिनेशन है ना, आई मीन इट्स अ क्रेजी थिंग, यू नो, कि एक मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम अफेयर्स एक कमिटी बिठाता है टू डिसाइड ये कम्युनिटी का डेफिनेशन क्या होगा. ये कहीं मुझे लगता है इंडिया में हुआ नहीं है. एक कम्युनिटी ऐसे ही कुछ बनती है, अपने हिसाब से बनती है, लेकिन यहाँ सरकार डिसाइड कर रहा है, एक कमिटी बिठाया जा रहा है टू डिसाइड ये एसएमईज होंगे कौन. मतलब एंड दैट इज़ व्हाट आई चैलेंज इन माय सेकंड बुक ऑल्सो थ्रू पब्लिक कमेंट्स. जैसे बहुत सारे लोग मतलब बाय बर्थ परहैप्स एसएमईज नहीं हैं, बट दे आर एसएमईज एंड दे व्हाई दे थिंक दैट दे आर एसएमईज. सो लाइक यू नो the Assamese Punjabis, Assamese Sikh, just those Sikh who were sent by Ranjit Singh to fight the Burmese alongside the Ahoms, they just settled there. They are Assamese, you know. So there are a lot of those people who talk about why they are Assamese. सो दिस इज़ अ स्ट्रेंज सिचुएशन. और उसमें पॉलिटिक्स खेलने का एक बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब आप ये तो खेल ही रहे हैं अभी. और ऊपर से क्या है कि जो एसएमईज में जातीयतावाद जो है, मतलब जो कहते हैं मतलब सब नेशनलिज्म, ये सब नेशनलिज्म वाज बॉर्न ड्यूरिंग द ब्रिटिश एरा. एंड मतलब जैसे होम्स आए, सब बाहर से ही आए, आके एक कम्युनिटी सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिटी सबके साथ वो किया. जैसे भी आपने देखिए मुगलों ने भी किया, इससे शादी किया, उससे शादी किया, ऐसे ऐसे करके ही टिपिकल राजा महाराजा जो करते हैं, एक सोसाइटी को फॉर्म किया. उसके बाद जब पार्टीशन के टाइम पे जब ब्रिटिश आ गए, तो देन द बिगेस्ट थिंग वाज दैट ये लैंग्वेज दे थॉट दैट इट वाज वेरी सिमिलर टू बंगाली. एक्चुअली असमीज इज एन ओल्डर लैंग्वेज देन बंगाली. सो उसको इम्पोज कर दिया, परहैप्स for administrative reasons. You don't know what it was. And so usme jo, and then of course the Babus, Bengali Babus came and they control. So it became a huge thing against the anti-Bengali thing. And it continued. So, and this was also the time when Bengal was actually, Bengalis were freed of Persian. So इनका भी एक रिवाइवल ऑफ द लैंग्वेज हो रहा था उस टाइम, तो वो भी थोड़ा सा चार्ज थे. तो मुझे लगता है इट वाज अनफॉर्चुनेट टाइम जो एक मतलब वो फाइट हुआ, और विच कंटिन्यूज ऑल्सो टिल डेट, एंड इन अ वेरी स्ट्रेंज लव एंड हेट यू नो सिचुएशन. अगर डाउन साउथ में एक असमीज और एक बंगाली मिलेंगे ना, वो लोग बात करेंगे कि कैसे कोकोनट ऑयल वाले खाना नहीं खा सकते. जब धीरे धीरे आप ऊपर आएंगे ना, इनके डिफरेंसेस शुरू हो जाते. सो ये है भारत देश. सो ये मतलब यू नो So ये आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा. And but we in Upper Assam particularly, which is the Assamese heartland, there are a lot of Bengalis who identify themselves as Assamese Bengalis. ये Calcutta के Bengali नहीं समझ पाएंगे. These are like, you know, they wear मेखला चादर during, जैसे मैं पहन रही हूँ, in their weddings. Silchar, that Borak Valley, which is like they fought for their Bengali language. जब लड़कियों को शादी करते हैं उसमें एक मेखला चादर उसके ट्रूजो में होना चाहिए. सो दीज आर द थिंग्स, हाउ डू यू डिफाइन दोज थिंग्स, यू नो. सो मुझे लगता है इफ़ वी डोंट स्टॉप प्लेइंग पॉलिटिक्स सर, तो लोग दूसरे के साथ रहने के लिए सीख जाते हैं. लेकिन एज जर्नलिस्ट मैं जब ये सब ग्राउंड में चलती हूँ और ऐसे रिपोर्टिंग के लिए मैं जाती हूँ और ये सब किताब लिखने के लिए भी रिसर्च करती हूँ, तो मुझे लगता है द होल फ्यूटिलिटी ऑफ इट, यू नो, दैट ऑफ दिस big long fights, you actually realize that as human beings we are so similar, and and most importantly we understand each other's language, you know. We actually understand our problems are the same. So when you rise above that a little, then you realize that actually we are the same people. तो ये मुझे लगता है as journalists, if we can take, as writers, if we can take this forward, you know, continue playing on that, तो मुझे लगता है एक बिगर नैरेटिव, कुछ एक स्ट्रॉन्गर नैरेटिव बन सकता है.
Is it true that in Assam there are 3 state languages?
There are many, sir.
No. So as per this, government may recognize. Yeah, that is
There are 4. Therefore, there's English, there's Bengali, there is Boro, and there is Assamese. So therefore, but we have multiple languages. Each language is amazing. Yes. Yeah.
ना आता आसामचा बघितलं ना, आसामियत काय आहे अजून आपल्याला ते शोधायचा प्रयत्न सुरूच आहे. म्हणजे तिकडे तर गव्हर्नमेंटनेच एक नेमली कमिटी आणि कोण आसामी आहे ते ठरवत आहेत. पण तोच इश्यू नेमका म्हणजे आय एम गोइंग टू अमनदीप नाव, क्योंकि अमनदीपने खरं तर पंजाबीयत काय आहे याचा शोध घेतला. मीन्स ही ॲक्च्युली एक्सप्लोर्ड व्हॉट इज पंजाबीयत. पंजाब म्हटल्यानंतर काही एक स्टिरिओटाईप आहेत, रिच फार्मर्स, त्यानंतर मोरी लॉंग अशी ती कसली ती सरसों के खेत और लॉट ऑफ ये व्हीट अँड राईस, सो फूड प्रोव्हायडर काइंड ऑफ थिंग. हां, लस्सी अँड सच अदर थिंग्स दॅट वी हॅव सच. आणि हे स्टिरिओटाईप आहेत ना, की एक किसान असतो आणि दुसरा सैनिक असतो. किसान और सैनिक, तो जय जवान जय किसान मैंने पंजाब के लिए ही बनाया ऐसा मुझे लगता था. तो एक आपले स्टिरिओटाईप आहे, त्या स्टिरिओटाईपच्या पलीकडचा व्हॉट इज द रिअल पंजाब, दॅट ॲक्च्युली अमनदीप एक्सप्लोर्ड इन हिज बुक. दॅट सो अँड पंजाबचं आसाम तरी पूर्ण होल आसाम इज इन इंडिया, अनलाइक पंजाब. पंजाब की बात अलग है पार्टीशन की. एक्चुअली पार्टीशन हुआ तो सिर्फ इंडिया का नहीं हुआ है, एक्चुअली पंजाब और बंगाल का पार्टीशन हुआ है.
आसाम का भी हुआ सर.
अच्छा, हाँ, वो एक आया ना, आसाम का भी हुआ है. सिलेट आई सपोज, सिलेट बट इन सिलेट देयर वाज ये लिया था ना, मीन्स that I know, but Sylhet opted for Pakistan. Okay.
That is the biggest anger they have against Assamese.
Okay.
That we allowed them to go.
Okay. Amandeep, will you please explain why did you feel need? Because Amandeep is not born and brought up in Punjab. He is born and brought up in somewhere else. So why did he feel need to explore Punjab and particularly Punjabiyat? And I would also like to know that how this Punjab, that is Eastern Punjab, which is in Pakistan, Western Pakistan, it's still influencing, means the very Punjabi psyche or Punjabi culture.
So when they, about 10 years back, when they started saying, Pakistan chale jao, Punjab was very happy. Bhej do. You know, like, so, but the larger question is that growing up outside Punjab, and for a period of time I was in Punjab also. Did my schooling in a military school there while there was militancy around us in the 80s. I grew up with multiple ideas of what Punjab meant. And just like we have students here, I was called to a particular college And I said, okay, students, give me the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the name Punjab. So somebody said Bhangra, somebody said Langar, somebody said Gurus, somebody said terrorism, somebody said female feticide, somebody said Dalit. So we started making a word picture on the blackboard, whiteboard. And where is Punjab among all of them? So I thought, okay, now let me go to Punjab, and I spent 3 years traveling and trying to understand what were the issues of Punjab. And something that happened with me, because we are also in a journalism conclave, and it's important for me to say it, is that for those of us who are living outside Punjab, the idea of Punjab that was coming to us mostly from a Delhi-based press, and the big names, there are even bigger names today, you realize when you walk into Punjab that most of the reportage was flawed. I'm not saying it was completely wrong, but it was flawed. It was not giving you the other side of the story. And my book tries to fill that side of the story. There was another thing, and that was that there were a number of books on Punjab, some even in English, but they were of two kinds mostly. One was history of the Sikhs, history of Punjab. I said, okay, history is fine, but what is happening current? What is going on right now? Just look around yourself. For the last 1.5 years, these Sikhs have been in the middle of two big nations in the world. But how many voices do you hear from Punjab, from the Sikh intellectuals or writers or workers about what is going on between India and Canada? Nothing. So there is a gap here. There is a gap that needs to be filled. There were a lot of books on politics of Punjab, on economy of Punjab, on agriculture of Punjab. But I was craving for a book which I pick up and I read and I get, okay, I understand this place. And my wish at that time was, and I'm very glad that Sangeeta worked on her book, Sudeep Chakravarti worked on his, Salil Tripathi has worked on his. We need to have books about the states of the country. Because the kind of regime we live under, if UCC comes into place, they're just trying to steamroll us all into one-dimension people. We are not. We are an intensely diverse country. And if we don't even have records of who we were, then what is the next generation going to look at? What are we going to tell them? So there were these multiple reasons to write about it, and one reason was, and it links it in the book, it's there, it says my mother was, once she was declared schizophrenic by doctors earlier, and Punjab has also always been told, oh, these Sardars have lost their mind, they're fighting for Khalistan, it's a similar thing going on, and I know how you construct a mad person in a family. And then at that point, she was also suffering from breast cancer, and she was dying, and various doctors had prescribed various medicines, but nobody was looking at her as a whole, as a person. And I didn't want to do that political gaze on Punjab, economic gaze on Punjab, agricultural gaze. I wanted to see Punjab as a whole, as how does it look? And I realized it's full of fault lines. And that is why I named my book, and fault lines are where earthquakes happen, like I said, if this Punjab is going to implode, these are the lines on which it will implode. But within a year of the book coming out, the farmers' agitation happened in Delhi. And everything I wrote in the book, that agitation turned it around on its head. And I loved it. Because, we cannot have a final word on a place or a people. We always imagine that we have understood, but we need to become humble, we need to go seeking, and then a whole ocean opens up. I'm sure it has happened with Sangeeta, I'm sure it happens with Pankaj. It just keeps opening up, and then there are layers upon layers you start discovering there.
So, what was the response to Punjabi translation of your book, this book? I think it is translated in Punjabi.
the response has been good. I mean, the response, see, the one thing that I skirted, because I went down to ground reporting, I mean, I must say, a particular editor at the Caravan, he said, okay, you're going in, please send me a story a month, you know. And those stories a month became the spine of the book, actually. Hartosh Bal told me to do that, because he's also a mentor of mine. So, Punjab is divided, I mean, of course, in various ways, but it's politically also divided in what is called the Sikh identity and the left movements, you know. So there's a deep chasm which has begun in that. Though if you remember in the 1910s, the Gadar party was together in North America. But now, historically, a lot of things have happened. So I skirted both of them because, very frankly, I'm sure Sangeeta had the same experience. When you go to places where militancy has happened, a call for separatism has happened and has not succeeded, it becomes a landmine. You know, you do not know which stone you will step on and a bomb would explode from under it. It's not a literal bomb, it's an ideological bomb. It is, some person gets very mad at you for what you are thinking, you are looking for, or the kind of question you have posed to them. So that was a training I got. Actually, I mean, I got the training of how to be a journalist while doing this book, though I was a journalist in the late 90s and I went into IT so that I could write my books, take care of my parents. And then coming back to this book, it was again going and doing journalism. And I was writing for a lot of them, Scroll, Wire, all of them. You know, like, so I think that dynamic of Punjab, that things have not settled. You know, when Rajiv Gandhi made that accord with Prafulla Mahanta, he also made the accord with Harchand Singh Longowal. Within a month of it, Longowal was assassinated. Punjab Accord was never fulfilled. You know, Chandigarh has not come to Punjab. Punjabi-speaking regions, Mizo Accord has not succeeded. So what happens when the state does this? And the Punjabi people, the Sikhs at least, they have not accepted Longowal as their leader. Because they said he was not an elected leader. How could he make an accord on our behalf? So there are contentious issues everywhere. And what I have understood is, under every issue, there is something else lurking. There is something, it's basically a bag of monkeys, you know. You keep pulling out one more comes in, one more comes out. And then somewhere you see that how do you solve any of this? And the only way I learned to solve is I went in broken looking for Punjab, but I came out with a lot of empathy in my heart, at least, for those people, you know. So that's what I have.
Yeah. Another, that just now we were talking that one of the missing elements in the book, that is the detailed analysis of the status of women in Punjab, as the state's gender balance is among the worst in the country.
Yeah, well, first thing is that the gender balance is improving because that the data we have is about 2011, you know, like all census has been delayed, particularly because of Assam and also because of CAA and all that, you know. But there has been a remarkable improvement according to estimates that people make. I can't vouch for them, but I have seen that improving. Sociologically, it has changed in the sense that now women are earning, women are doing work, women are taking care of old parents. So people have realized that hunting for the boy who will go and become a drug addict, it's better to groom a daughter who will actually take care of them in old age. So that shift is happening in society. But what was the original question?
What is the
Why don't I mention women? So one of the persons I went to get a blurb on the book was Urvashi Butalia. So we all respect her immensely because of working on women during partition. And I went to her for a blurb and then she told me, she said, okay, I read the book, I've given the blurb, but you should have made a chapter on women. I said, but women are not the fault line. Women are actually keeping Punjabi society together, you know. So conceptually it didn't work for me and I tried to put women in every chapter, but at the same time I must admit, this is my third book around Punjab, both novels and this. And the gender bias in Punjab, the patriarchy there, the feudalism there, I have not been able to penetrate that wall. You know, Punjab is largely, I mean, the Sikh Punjab is largely a rural society. And it has its own dynamics of working. You know, urban Punjab is more Hindu. I mean, that is also how the Akali BJP thing worked out for them earlier in Punjab. But to get to know what the women are thinking, how they are responding to situations around them, as a man, I have found it very, very difficult to penetrate that wall. In fact, I was telling this, if I have 1 minute. So, like 2015 elections, I was traveling Punjab and I took a friend with me. Her name was also Amandeep. And she was doing a PhD in Punjab University. She was a student leader. She had stood for president election and all that. So dynamic woman. And we reached near Bathinda, a place called Maur. And we broke for the night there. And I had a friend's house. And we went in. And they welcomed us. In Punjab, you can do that. In fact, through the whole book, I never lived in hotels. I never lived in guest houses. Whichever village I was in, I would go to the sarpanch and say, I need to sleep here. Or if there was a gurdwara, I will go there and say, I need to sleep here. And they would give me food, they would give me rest. So that was also very beautiful about traveling Punjab. But around 5:30 we entered, they gave us tea and all that, and then we went for a round and came back, and I don't see Aman anywhere. And at around 7:30 I messaged her, I said, where are you? I mean, she said, I am in the house, but I am in the women's section of the house. I said, so we'll meet on dinner. She said, no. Your dinner will be with the men, my dinner will be with the women. So that divide remains. You know, it shifted during the farmers' protest, but if I have a question on that, I'll answer that.
Okay, let's, thanks. Another, this question is about, means, how did you actually rip all those stereotypes? Means, ripped those
Read the book to know how I ripped them apart.
No, that's okay, but I have read it.
Yes.
Will you please explain
No,
that?
it's just,
With the process, so
the
that all
process
this
is
journalism...
to ask yourself the political economy question about everything. You know, if you look at the identity question, if you look at the religious question, if you look at the caste question, you don't get the right answers. But if you ask the political economy question, where does this person fit in society? What is the worth of this person's, the value of this person's work in the society? Are they being paid commensurate to their importance in society? That is how these images that we have built, these stereotypes, they start breaking. You know, like, for example, as Sir said earlier, this Green Revolution and these farmers and soldiers of India, these are stereotypes, right? You live in Pune, which is close to Bombay, and you always see in the end of Hindi films, the truck that comes is a Sandhu transport truck, you know. The same bloody truck is coming in every film, you know, like, so, you know. At one time, the men in the male heroes of Bollywood in the 50s, 60s, 70s were all from Punjab. You know, you name them, Hindus and Sikhs both, not Sikhs, Hindus mostly, except Dharmendra, of course. You know, but Raj Kapoor, Devanand, Rajesh Khanna, all these big heroes were from Punjab. But how do you, then you look at them, what is going on right now in the farmers' space in the country? You know, that are they getting adequate compensation for the work they are putting in for the society? No, they are not getting it. So, but if they are rich, why should they be caring about what they are getting, not getting? But they are not rich. They have small holdings of land. 85% of Punjab's farmers are small and marginal farmers. They have 1.5 to 5 acres of land. Can you make a profitable living on 5 acres of land? Not at all. So that is why you need to increase the minimum support price of crops. But if you keep growing paddy in Punjab, which is anyway not Punjab's, crop, then you are depleting the water levels of Punjab. How much has Punjab's water levels depleted? You know, 85% of or 80% of the districts are at below the 3rd aquifer level. So here is a state named after 5 rivers, out of which you are left with 2.5 rivers. And then the groundwater there is also empty. So what kind of water place is this Punjab? So how many stereotypes break in when you ask the political economy question? Are they getting the rightful money for their crop? But who is living on that crop? The whole of India. For 5 decades, they have made themselves barren, they have finished their water there, and they have been feeding the rest of the country. And then the other question comes out, what has the country done for them? And then you realize, not much. In fact, there has been militancy, there was a call for separatism. Then you start understanding why these people were frustrated. And then you go and look back and you say, oh, but Nehru promised something to them, Gandhi promised something to them. You know, who were the freedom fighters? Who were the ones who were killed in Andaman and Nicobar cellular jail? You know, how many of them were arrested? And you say there was a large participation of these Punjabi people. So is the country looking at them? No. So that's how you start unraveling the question of Punjab.
Yeah, thanks, Amandeep. Very good. I'll now move to Radhesham, and then I'll come to you, because now this is the farmers issue he has actually raised. And so Radhesham, त्यातला एक दोन चार म्हणजे राधेश्यामचा जो मी आता म्हटलं पुस्तक आहे हे प्रामुख्याने म्हणजे मी जे वाचलंय ते हे प्रामुख्याने म्हणजे याच्यावरती आहे आत्महत्या केलेल्या शेतकऱ्यांच्या ज्या बायका आहेत त्यांनी शेती किंवा अन्य व्यवसाय कसे केले आणि त्याच्यातून त्यांनी हे कसं आपला कुटुंब कसं सांभाळलं याचे केस स्टडीजच थोडे असे आहेत. तर मी राधेश्याम म्हणजे काय नाव काय हार्वेस्टिंग होप्स इन सुसाईड झोन, दॅट्स द नेम ऑफ हिज बुक. सो एक पहिली गोष्ट म्हणजे कसं आलं तुला, मीन्स यू कॅन टॉक इन इंग्लिश बाय द वे, मी फक्त यांच्यासाठी मराठीत प्रश्न विचारतो की हा म्हणजे हा विषय महाराष्ट्रामध्ये गेली 10-15 वर्ष सुरू आहे. माझ्या अंदाजाने 1995 पासूनच हा विषय सुरू आहे, particularly of farmer suicide. So, and there are lot many books and lot many research papers. TISS has some, and even Yashada also has come up with some reports and such others. So, lot many reports are there. So, why did you actually choose to write the book? How did it actually occur to you? How did you go about it? And third is, what is the idea of, means what is your concept of empowerment? Please.
दिसत नाही आहे कोणी, त्यामुळं एक बोलताना अडचण होते. मगाशी सुनील जे म्हणाला त्या दोन गोष्टी फक्त मी सुनील जस्ट ॲड करू शकतो की आपण गंजपेठेमध्ये बसलो आहोत आणि सत्सार नावाचं अनियतकालिक महात्मा ज्योतिराव फुलेंनी चालवलं होतं. त्या अर्थानं पत्रकार म्हणून दीनबंधू सुरू करावा यासाठी काही फार त्यांचं प्रोत्साहन नव्हतं, पण सत्सार त्यांनी जरूर चालवलं आणि गुलामगिरीपासून शेतकऱ्याच्या आसूडपर्यंत त्यांनी लिहिलं. दुसरं नाव प्रामुख्यानं जे आपण पत्रकार आणि लेखक म्हणून आवर्जून वाचावं असं डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकरांचं आहे. मूकनायक बहिष्कृत भारतपासूनचं ते त्यांनी लिहिलेलं सगळं. अगदी अलीकडच्या काळामध्ये एक नाव अनिल अवचटांच्याबरोबरचं हमीद दलवाईंनी जे काही लेखन केलं मराठामध्ये ते वाचण्यासारखं आहे. कमिंग बॅक टू सुनील्स क्वेश्चन, when I was covering stories in Marathwada and Vidarbha, and we were covering farmer suicide stories. Nowadays we don't even cover farmer suicide stories. It has become single column story or not, it's not even a story. When we say that in last 15-20 years, Maharashtra has been the top state where farmer suicides are recorded in the highest number. Average number is 2,500 or something like that. If 2,500 farmers are ending their lives, what happens to their wives? Do they commit suicide? What happens to them? So that was something which I was trying to find. And as Sunil said, म्हणजे खूप तुम्ही लोक आपण सगळे या विषयाशी संबंधित आहोत. आपण आपल्या आजूबाजूला बघत असतो. वी डोंट थिअराइज इट, आपण फक्त रिपोर्ट करतो. One of the major reasons I thought I should write, because one, I wanted to theorize it, and second, I thought of a autoethnography perspective where I was not able to say much in my stories when I was reporting women farmers. But in book, I had that space that I can become a character in the story. So that was one reason. Second, these are not positive stories. These are not success stories. And these are not stories of triumph. Empowerment essentially means a constructive struggle by self-assertive people against oppressive structures. म्हणजे शोषणाच्या ज्या चौकटी आपल्या आजूबाजूला असतात, कुठल्या प्रकारे शोषण अस्तित्वात असतं. फर्स्ट इज ऑफकोर्स आयडियोलॉजिकल ऑपरेशन. Second is institutional. It trickles down to institutional operation. Third is interpersonal. And fourth, most dangerous form is internalized oppression. When you internalize oppression, how you fight that? So that was something which I was trying to find. And all these stories are, as I said, not positive or success stories. These are stories of successful struggle, not necessarily or essentially end in success. काही लढाया ह्या लढण्यासाठी लढायच्या असतात, त्या जिंकण्यासाठी लढायच्या नसतात. काही लढाया लढणं म्हणजे जिंकणं असतं. सो दीज आर द स्टोरीज वेअर दीज वुमेन आर फायटिंग दिस बॅटल अँड फायटिंग दिस बॅटल इट सेल्फ इज अ विक्ट्री. सो दिस वॉज समथिंग विच आय वॉज लुकिंग फॉर इन दिस थिंग्स.
दोन चार उदाहरणं बऱ्याच लोकांनी पुस्तक वाचलं नसेल अनक्वाच.
मेजॉरिटीने वाचलं नसेल.
त्यामुळे जरा दोन चार ती उदाहरणं दिलीस तर चांगलं. ऑफकोर्स इन इंग्लिश सो दॅट.
या इंग्लिश मराठी मिक्स करतो. एक सारोळा म्हणून गाव आहे उस्मानाबादजवळ आणि विद्याताई मोरे म्हणून तिथं शेतकरी महिला आहेत. म्हणजे गेले 10 वर्ष मी त्यांच्या संपर्कात आहे. सो वन्स यू डू अ स्टोरी, दॅट स्टोरी गिव्ज अ बायलाईन अँड गिव्ज अ अवॉर्ड. दॅट्स द एंड ऑफ द स्टोरी. दॅट्स नॉट द थिंग. यू नीड टू फॉलो अप ऑन दॅट. वन fine evening, she was cooking and her husband entered into a small hut with some cans in his hand. And within few seconds, he pours kerosene all around the hut. Her 2 small kids are playing there. And within a flash, ती सगळी झोपडी ते जळून टाकायच्या याच्याने. And then he holds his wife tightly and says, we both are going to die together because I have a loan of 20,000 rupees. 20,000 rupees. And it will be difficult for you to survive after me. That woman had hardly few seconds to decide whether she dies with her husband or she saves her kid and she fights her battle. She made a decision, and when she was narrating this, she was stoic. There was not even a single drop of tear in her eyes. The way she was telling me, like, हे असं झालं, आणि मी तिला ढकललं बाजूला. And then I rolled on the ground. बाहेर आले घराच्या. आणि द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन शी फेस्ड वेन नेबर्स केम इन वॉज, असं नवऱ्याला सोडून कसं काय तू आलीस. म्हणजे नवऱ्याला सोडून तू स्वतःचा जीव वाचवलास. यू आर सेव्हिंग युअर ओन लाईफ अँड वेन यू अलाउइंग युअर हजबंड टू डाय. सो पीपल क्वेश्चनड हर. अँड देन इट वॉज लाईक her in-laws kicked her out of the house. She had to fight a legal battle to get the land. Then she decided to cultivate sugarcane. Sugarcane is man's crop. Crop is also gendered. So sugarcane, soya, cotton, these are cash crops. These are men's crop. Vegetables, coriander, anything that you can cultivate, that is a woman's crop. When she decided to cultivate sugarcane, the village sarpanch was agitated, and there was a Gram Sabha which was called and said that this woman is cultivating sugarcane. Can you believe this? And then water supply to her sugarcane was cut off. And there was no person ready to work in her farm, because if I am a daily wage laborer, a man, how can I work in a woman's farm? So, as I was saying, oppression continues in institutional form. It's in ideological form. Only thing happened with this Vidyati was she never allowed this to internalize. She never internalized oppression. She decided to fight. She cultivated sugarcane. There were some women who came to rescue. And then she paid her loan. She educated her children. Now see, empowerment is a process. It's never ending a process. आपण मराठीमध्ये ज्याला वर्ग, वर्ण, जात आणि स्त्रीदास्य असं जेव्हा म्हणतो, there's अ इंटरसेक्शनॅलिटी वेन वी टॉक ऑफ ऑपरेशन. she was questioned by society, questioned by her husband, parents. She decided to educate her son and daughter, and now she has another battle she has to fight. She has to fight with her son because he's again a man in the society with the same patriarchal approach.
आता याचं म्हणजे एक मला प्रश्न असा पडला आहे की व्हाय डिडंट यू राईट दिस बुक इन मराठी?
मराठीमध्ये व्याकरण माझं चांगलं नाही. मी पाणी म्हणतो, मी पाणीच म्हणतो.
तो व्याकरण ही बोली भाषा काय काही उच्चार असू देत. What he's saying is that he doesn't he can't write what you call it as literary Marathi, that is considered to be elite's language, and his own language, for example, for water in Marathi we call it pani, whereas in his mother tongue it is pani, just like Hindi.
Language is also pure and impure.
Marathi is officially classical language.
That's what
But
people.
let's not talk about that. That's another issue.
There is a classical language that people say that is classical. That's what we have decided. I don't agree with that.
बघा महात्मा फुलेंनी पहिलं माझ्या अंदाजाने फर्स्ट रिपोर्टाज ऑन फार्मर्स, दॅट इज शेतकऱ्याचा असूड, वॉज इन मराठी. He wrote it in Marathi and in his own language. He never followed those language or whatever those benchmarks set by Tipulunkers and others. And another thing is, it was the first reportage because he knew that no farmers can read or write. So he would go to village and village, he will read out his essays and then invite all the comments and criticism, and then again he will rework on that essay. That's how he works.
So add सुनील, आता जे सुनील म्हणत होता, शेतकऱ्याचा असूड आणि गुलामगिरी लिहिल्यानंतर निबंधमालेमध्ये विष्णुशास्त्री चिपळूणकरांनी महात्मा फुलेंच्याबद्दल असं लिहिलं होतं की आमचे हे महाक्षुद्र बंधू, वबेटम महाक्षुद्र बंधू ज्यांना पूर्ण व्याकरणाचे ज्ञानही नाही, ते आम्हाला ज्ञान शिकवू लागले आहेत.
नाही पण ते मराठी यायला पाहिजे होतं ना, असं मला म्हणायचं आहे. या
मराठीमध्ये लिहीन, पण माझ्या मराठीमध्ये लिहीन.
हो, yes.
एक मला बातमीदारांच्या मध्ये, म्हणजे तुम्ही बरेच जण बातमीदार आहात, आपण जेव्हा बातमी लिहितो, वेन वी राईट स्टोरी, वेन वी राईट फार्मर्स कोट, आपण मराठीमध्ये लिहिताना तो शेतकऱ्याचा कोटही शुद्ध करून लिहितो. आणि हे मी पाहिलेलं आहे. म्हणजे तो शेतकरी जर असं म्हणत असेल, फार्मर इज सेईंग इन हिज ओन लँग्वेज, ही सेईंग की मराठीमध्ये आपण असं म्हणू की गावाकडे लई दुष्काळ पडला आहे. लई हा शब्द अशुद्ध आहे, त्यामुळं गावाकडे फार दुष्काळ पडलेला आहे असं शुद्ध करून लिहिणारे उपसंपादक मराठीमध्ये आजही, आणि पत्रकारितेच्या काही महाविद्यालयामध्ये या शुद्ध भाषेचा आग्रह, दीज जर्नलिझम स्कूल्स हे कत्तलखाने आहेत ग्रामीण भागातून येणाऱ्या मुलांसाठी.
ते लवकरच येऊ दे मराठीमध्ये. सो आणि दुसरी एखादी स्टोरी, सो दॅट एव्हरीबडी विल गेट एनलाइट.
As I was saying, when
एका बाईने तो ऑर्गॅनिक ॲग्रिकल्चर केलं, त्यांचं सांग ना, म्हणजे how she actually switched to
so what you said is I 100% agree. When we talk of political economy, we need to develop this paradigm to understand this operation from political economy perspective. Not necessarily when you write a story you have a positivism in mind that there is only one reality which exists, and we can find that reality using our epistemological approach. We should get rid of that. As I was saying, there's an intersectionality when it comes to operation. If I am a woman, if I am a poor woman, if I am a woman from Dalit community, if I am a poor woman from Dalit community, and if I am widow, there is an intersectionality of oppression which I face. हे भुईसमुद्र का गावामधली गोष्ट आहे. सो 2016ची गोष्ट आहे. 2016मध्ये खूप मोठा दुष्काळ पडला आणि धाराशिव वॉज वन ऑफ द डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स वेअर हायेस्ट नंबर ऑफ फार्मर सुसाइड्स वेअर रिपोर्टेड. सुनीता कांबळे म्हणून एक त्या ताई आहेत. सो शी डिसाइडेड दॅट की वी नीड टू डू समथिंग बिकॉज ऑलमोस्ट ऑल मेन इन विलेज मायग्रेटेड टू पुणे अँड मुंबई आणि कल्टिवेशन करण्यासाठी काहीच नव्हतं. म्हणजे कमी पाण्यातली पिकं कशी घ्यायची, काय करायची, असं त्या काहीतरी विचार करत होत्या. सो शी डिसाइडेड टू स्पीक टू विमेन इन विलेज बिकॉज शी वॉज अ लँडलेस लेबरर. अँड देन शी डिसाइडेड दॅट ओके वी आर गोइंग टू हायर अ लँड and we'll at least try some experiments. We can cultivate some vegetables, some crops which we can grow on less water, which traditional knowledge she has got. The first thing she faced was that संध्याकाळी त्याच्या घरी लोक आले आणि they asked her, म्हणजे तुमचं धाडस कसं झालं आमच्या घरी यायचं आणि आमच्या बायकांना बोलवायचं, एकत्रित करायचं. त्या चर्मकार समाजातून येतात. शी कम्स फ्रॉम अ चमार कम्युनिटी. अँड देन विलेज मेन वे ॲजिटेटेड that this one woman from the Chamar community comes to our doorsteps and tells a woman that okay, let's come together and let's have collective farming. अगदीच काही पर्याय झाला नाही. Then she decided to get a land on rent. काही ₹1000 त्यांनी एक, आणि त्यांना असं वाटतं आपण काहीतरी एक्सपेरिमेंट करून घ्या. खूप NGOs खूप काम करत होते त्या भागामध्ये. स्वयंशिक्षण प्रयोगसारखी संस्था काम करत होती आणि त्यांनी असं ठरवलं की भले काही हाती येणार आहे बट लेट्स ॲटलिस्ट ट्राय, आपण काय करू शकतो मॅक्झिमम. आणि देन सम अदर वुमेन जॉईंट अँड स्लोली दे वर अ ग्रुप ऑफ वुमेन 10-12 women. By the end of this cultivation cycle they were able to go to Lohara market, Tulzapur market, and together they could save 6,000 rupees. So that gave confidence. And when I met this woman, she was a self-assertive woman and she had gained that leadership position in the village. So her caste didn't matter when she was fighting drought.
तुम्हाला ते राधेश्यामचं पुस्तक सगळ्यांनी वाचा. मी त्याच्याकडनं सगळं पुस्तक नाही ऐकून घेणार आहे. एनिवेज लेट्स मूव टू पंकज नाव. आता अंदमान निकोबार याच्यावरती खरं तर मला ते पुस्तक वाचल्यानंतरच आय गॉट टू नो अबाउट द इकॉलॉजी ऑफ अंदमान निकोबार अँड द इश्यूज पर्टिक्युलरली मीन्स तिकडे अनेक इश्यूज आहेत. म्हणजे ते इकॉलॉजी केवढी ही आहे, फ्रजाईल इकॉलॉजी आहे आणि त्याच्यात कोणते प्रश्न निर्माण झालेले आहेत. तर पंकज हे रिसर्चर आहेत, म्हणजे इंजिनियर आहेत, रिसर्चर आहेत, फोटोग्राफर आहेत आणि ऑफकोर्स मेजर कॅम्पेनर आहेत. त्या इज बेसिकली अ कॅम्पेनर आणि ऑफकोर्स रिसर्चर ॲज वेल बट बेसिकली अ कॅम्पेनर. या तो पंकज, विल यू प्लीज टॉक अबाउट द इकॉलॉजी ऑफ अंडमान निकोबार आयलंड, that archipelago, and then we'll, okay, is that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And how it is so crucial from defense perspective also and from India. And then I'll ask you questions about what do you say about the indigenous people and the threat to environment by exotic animals like what do you say, elephants and deers, particularly cheetahs were there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I just give a little context to the work and the book also. So I have been, like Sunil mentioned, I've been with an environmental organization based in Pune called Kalpavriksha, where I've been working, and I've also been a freelance journalist. I've never been in media officially or formally, but I've been writing for the last 30 years. So the work in the Andamans has been almost 30 years of journalism as a freelancer. And then I'm also, like you mentioned, an academic. So it's important to kind of underline that, because this particular book, there are others as well, Islands in Flux, actually is a complete cut and paste job. So I think what's interesting in the panel here is, I think I am the outsider to this landscape. Unlike in some senses, Sangeeta and Aman and Radhesham are from the place that they're writing about. And I think that has advantages and disadvantages both. And this particular book is actually just journalism, sometimes very disconnected, written on this place for the last 30 years, that I brought together to kind of construct it's been kind of a lazy job. One option of writing a long form narrative, a single monograph, I think is very valuable. But why I'm also highlighting that is because my experience has been of working in two areas. One is in the Andamans and then on wildlife issues for almost 30 years. And I think in different ways, and what I also hear here is the need to be in touch with that place, and that builds up the perspective and that builds up a story to be told. And I can, when I look at the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and I'm thinking about that, there's so much, even though I write as an outsider. I grew up in Pune, by the way, and I happened to go to the islands as a complete chance because I had some free time. And then since the 1990s, I've been traveling there and writing about that place. So it is extremely interesting to see overlaps of many kinds, because what are the stories that we get to hear about a place, or what are the images that are created about a place? It reflects very nicely with what Sangeeta and particularly Aman also said. We just know this much about that particular place, and when you go down there and try and understand and unpack, it's like layer after layer of such fascinating stories that kind of emerge of the people, of the ecology, of the history, of the gaze of the state. Because there is nothing further from Delhi geographically in India than the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So if you use a compass and draw a circle around Delhi, there is nothing beyond, say, Great Nicobar Island that belongs to India. So it's on the fringes of the mind. And also I was just writing something in the morning today on what's happening. It's this complete mindlessness of how we want to look at that space. Ambition, what does the state think? What do we think of that place? It is just so far away that we have no idea of what that place is. And the multi-layers of history, of people, of ecology. So actually I write in one of these books, there's so much talk about the history of the islands. And one of the reasons why the book came about was how the issue of naming these islands keeps coming back. And now we have so many new names for these islands. And we talk about the reclaiming of the history, but the indigenous people in these islands have been there for maybe 30,000 years. But the history that we go back to, and I write somewhere in the book, in one of the articles, is that actually, if we really wrote the history of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the British would be a page, independent India would be a footnote. So 75 years of independent India in a landscape that has human habitation for 30, 40,000 years, we don't even know. How can that be the history of that place? So it gets captured. And the opportunity of being there and writing about it and seeing the place has actually allowed for that. And then all these layers also come about. I mean, it is a spectacular biodiversity hotspot, unlike anything in this country, unlike anything in the world. But that also ends up kind of exoticizing the place, and we've also been guilty of that. Indigenous people over there, communities that we hear about, the Jarawas, the Sentinelese, in many cases names from the outside, but also they get to be known as these dark, black people who didn't wear clothes, who are aggressive. So they become objects of investigation, of fascination, of exoticization. And there's so much over there, the critique of the human zoo kind of thing. So when you go there and start to understand the history of independent India also. So as I've been there going up and down for the last 30 years, these stories kept emerging and I kept writing them. And then about 5-6 years ago, I thought, let's put it together as a book. And we've done multiple iterations of that now. So we just published a latest edition in 2024. So this is a slightly different, it's a lazy book, I must say that. But what I also realized is that when we put together these different stories written at a gap of 25 years, they talk to each other in very interesting ways. And they create a narrative of their own, which in the absence of anything else, allows for a perspective on that particular place. With that rather long background, the place is beautiful in terms of the ecological wealth, the fact that these forests have not been explored, a spectacular, and that's the only word that comes to my mind, of the coastline, the beaches, and very, very unexplored and very pristine oceans. So we know very little about what is there in those oceans, whether it is the marine life, coral reefs, coastal ecosystems. So in every way, it's an absolutely priceless kind of system.
Yeah, but shall I ask you about this swiftlets? Will you please, so that it would illustrate your point?
Yeah, so there's a bird known as the edible nest swiftlet, which actually is not only restricted to these Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And as the name you would recognize, edible nest swiftlet. It's a small bird. The nest of the bird is edible. That's why it's called the edible nest swiftlet. And it's one of the many wonders of this planet that we live on. And there are many, many in the islands, and I'd be happy to talk about them. So the edible nest swiftlet has a very interesting behavior. It makes a nest entirely out of its own saliva. So it's a nest, it's the only bird, animal that creates its home, as it were, from entirely its own creation. So it's entire, there's not one tinka of grass or mud or soil. So it's pure biological material, which has a very high value in the international market because it is used in Chinese medicine as many things are. And there's a very interesting story about how this is a very important and a very valuable commodity in many markets. And they are found in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and there was a whole effort at harvesting them, and there's one of the stories on that, of the effort of a scientist and now his students to try and work with the local communities, not the tribal people, the settlers, to see if the bird can come and nest in a room like this. Because they nest in a hall or a room or in a caves, which are completely dark, no light, and extremely cool. So if you create the right kind of ecosystem, you can have the bird come and nest over there. So this is one kind of very interesting one. And I just mentioned one more, an absolutely fascinating creature, also a global creature known as a giant leatherback turtle, which is the largest of the sea turtles on planet Earth in the oceans of the planet. Can grow up to 6-7 feet in length, 600 kilograms in weight. And the Nicobar Islands is the most important nesting site of that turtle in the entire northern Indian Ocean. And satellite tracking of these turtles has shown that after nesting in the Andaman and Nicobar waters, they go 12,000 kilometers to the African coast and 10,000 kilometers to the Australian coast.
Just a second. So far the swiftlets are concerned, actually government adopted protectionism. And that's what, just...
Yeah, I'm not sticking on that story because there are so to be told.
Please.
Because that will take the whole. Let me complete the the giant leatherback story because I have an agenda there. Is that the nesting site of the giant leatherback? The leatherback is a creature that has been on the planet since the time of the dinosaurs. And the latest book that we did, I don't know if there'll be time, which is I just want to talk about, is a book called The Great Nicobar Betrayal, which is also a short collection. We have copies here of 12 short articles written by a range of journalists, including myself, on this massive project, completely delusional project in my opinion, that is coming up in Great Nicobar Island. It's a $10 billion project. Coming up, the heart of the project is in an area called Galathea Bay, which is an absolutely spectacular nesting site of the giant leatherback. And that is the site that will go. So one of the rarest, one of the oldest creatures on planet Earth, that connects the islands and India to the entire world will be lost because we are going to conduct a project over there. And this is also important. So just one point to make is that the other very interesting dimension of these islands, which we forget, is the geological. This is located in a very tectonically active zone. So exactly 20 years ago, 26 December 2004, it's just 4 days away if you recollect, we had the biggest earthquake and tsunami in human history. We know that date for the tsunami. But what happened in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is like with Andamans in the north, Nicobar in the south, Port Blair as a pivot, the islands tilted like a child's seesaw would do in a playground. So the Andaman Islands that morning came up by 5 feet. And Nicobar Island, Indira Point, sank that morning by 15 feet. 15 feet of permanent subsidence that morning. That landscape has an earthquake once a week. And it is on that very landscape, on that very coastline, that we are going to invest 40,000 crores of rupees in the construction of a port. So why I'm also saying this is because these are not the stories that we get to hear about these islands. We hear of the Jarawas, and we hear of Savarkar, and we hear of the cellular jail, and we hear of tourism. But there's such a wide diversity of stories and issues there that are fascinating for themselves, but also very important for us to know, because this is a place that is, I mean, as singular as anything can be, because we have things that are not there anywhere else on the planet.
हे जे म्हणतात ना, तो गालाथिया बेला जो प्रोजेक्ट येतो आहे तो आहे ट्रान्सशिपमेंट पोर्ट. ट्रान्सशिपमेंट पोर्टमध्ये काय असतं की मोठी जी प्रचंड जहाजं असतात त्यातला माल काढून छोट्या जहाजांमध्ये ठेवला जातो, एवढंच त्यात पोर्टचं काम असतं. त्या पोर्टमधून म्हणजे जनरली आता मुंबई पोर्ट असेल तर मुंबई पोर्टमध्ये काय असतं, ह्या बोटी येतात तिकडचा माल इकडे येतो किंवा कंडलाचा माल इकडे येतो असं असतं. ट्रान्सशिपमेंट पोर्ट मात्र वेगळं असतं, तिकडे प्रचंड महाकाय बोटी असतात. या आपल्या या ऑडिटोरियमच्याही म्हणजे 1000 कंटेनर्स वगैरे असे असतात आणि त्यातले कंटेनर्स हे छोट्या बोटींमध्ये टाकून मग पाठवलं जातात. अशा प्रकारचा तो मोठा प्रोजेक्ट तिकडे येतो आहे. ते जे सांगतात त्या इंदिरा पॉईंटजवळ येतो आहे. त्याच्या संबंधातली स्टोरी म्हणजे अधिक मी केली होती. आम्ही यूट्यूबवरती आमचा इंडी जर्नलच्या यूट्यूब चॅनलवरती यू विल फाइंड दिस स्टोरी. एनिवेज, तर पुढचा हा प्रश्न होता माझा की माय क्वेश्चन इज ॲज आय सेड दॅट गव्हर्नमेंट्स व्हॉट इज द गव्हर्नमेंट्स पॉलिसी इफ यू कुड इलस्ट्रेट इट with the two examples like, as I said, swiftlets and elephants. That will be wonderful.
So, I mean, these are the...
So far as the logging is concerned, elephants, I think.
Yeah, so that's a slightly old story in the sense that one of the biggest industries in the island was of timber logging because this is a fantastic forest. And that story also has not been told. So, they started logging more than 120 years ago. And elephants were brought in from mainland India for logging in that place. So, and then when logging stopped, people did not have any work for the elephants, so they were left in the forest and they became feral. And there are some parts of the islands where some of these elephants are still roaming around. So that's kind of one story that has been there around from an ecological perspective. It's an interesting one. And then, of course, like you mentioned, the edibleness swiftlet is, they were trying to first not allow people to harvest those nests and sell them. But then, like I mentioned, the scientist from SACON, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, Ravi Sankaran, many would have heard of him, was trying to work with the community to see if he can actually create a business model out of that. But I think these are slightly older stories, and the narrative there has moved far ahead with a lot more that's happened in the last 10 years, and including particularly this massive project that's now coming up.
Right. मी आता shall I open it for the questions? कोणाला प्रश्न विचारायचे असतील तर अवश्य विचारा.
In 1980, when my ship was in Montreal, Canada, that time in newspaper I read one news item that said that India achieves the distinction of becoming the first Commonwealth nation that we need now visa to go to Canada. Previously, as a Commonwealth, we land there and 1 year visa we get. But Punjabis, sorry, not Punjabis, Sardarjis, with Sikhs, used to go there. So many Sikhs used to go there that entire flight used to apply for the political asylum. And that's how Canadian government, and they started flights from Amritsar and direct flights to Ottawa. So Canadian government decided that no more visa on arrival, you need to get visa over there. And about Punjabis, another quality I noticed.
Hello. Please प्रश्न विचारा ना.
There is no question.
No,
I have comments for his what
please,
he said about Punjabi.
No, that is fine. Let's give chance because time is very less.
You don't want to listen comments. Okay.
Sir,
No.
hello.
No, I have teased a question out of your comment, and let me answer it. I get where you're going. Yeah, sure, sir. The militancy period in Punjab created a huge exodus of Sikhs from Punjab who were either troubled by the state or they were troubled by militants themselves, which happens very often, and they were all running away somewhere. The ones who ran away there, they have gone there on political asylum, many of them, and the asylum keeps getting renewed every few years. And that is why you see Khalistan so much in news. The news is mostly in the diaspora. The news is mostly, when activities happen there. But in Punjab or in the rest of India, which I'm now investigating, there is hardly any talk about Khalistan. But this is what the Indian government refuses to accept. And they keep this whole thing fluttering all the time. So that comes back to your question, that why were the Sikhs running away? The Sikhs were doing very well in India. All over the country, I'm discovering them now, and they've built the country. But then when militancy starts, when the accord fails, when there is a political sort of a apathy towards them, then what do people do?
जाधव सरांना प्रश्न आहे. जाधव सर, तुम्ही तांबे सर जसं म्हणताय त्याप्रमाणे शेतकऱ्यांची आत्महत्या ही महाराष्ट्रावर मोठा कलंकच आहे. तर त्याविषयी तांबे सर तुम्हाला पुन्हा पुन्हा सांगताय, तर या हॉलच्या वतीने सर्वांच्या वतीने मी सांगतो की तुम्ही तुमच्या भाषेत लिहिलं तरी चालेल, लोकांना ते आवडणार आहे. धन्यवाद.
Sir, I have question to Amandeep sir and Sangeeta ma'am. Balcony upside. My question is that, as you both said, there is a lot of influence of Delhi media on the local media or the local channel as well. So what is the one thing which Delhi media have and local media doesn't, and why is the influence so much on these channels?
This question is to me?
Both to you
both,
as well as Amandeep sir.
Okay, what is there in Delhi media that is not there in?
There is a gap between the Delhi media and the reality of our states.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's there's a lot of gap. It's the gap that I wanted to fill with my book, and so did Amandeep. The thing is that, I'll just give you a very recent example, which is of Manipur. There are a lot of, when this whole, for over a year now, that state is burning, and but there are a lot of reports you will see in national media, mostly by digital media, but then also other say print and electronic also you will see. But I, as a person who covers the region regularly, I was for a minute actually thinking how to handle this story. But I didn't see that kind of hesitation in my colleagues who are from, say, Delhi or mainstream, mainland India, because they are seeing that some killings are happening. They're just going. They have to report. But because I perhaps know the history, there's so much I know, and I was just thinking where to catch it from. Okay, and there. Because for me, history is so important, and so at least you have to go back 10 years to be able to talk about it. Okay, so to able to place it, and there's so many, and lot of first things happened this time. There were women being paraded naked, never happened in the Northeast. Forget Manipur. Anywhere else, when there are ethnic conflict, is common in the region. But no community will touch each other's women or children. There's no, it's a done thing. So that's the reason the entire Meitei community had to face so much of flack, when this thing happened, even from their fellow Northeasterners. And that's why a lot of Meitei people came out, right-thinking Meitei people came out and condemned it, okay? So it is because these are a lot of new things that are happening for us, but I didn't see that kind of writing from, say, my fellow colleagues. They talked about it, which is important, but they were not contextualized it. So I finally wrote a piece for The Wire, how this entire community, the Meitei communities are being accused of this, and Meitei entire big protest that happened, women who paraded naked in front of the army people and said, rape us, they are now being accused of parading a woman naked. This is for me, it was one of the biggest stories, or biggest, if you look at Northeastern, ethnic conflict and all that. And then the other thing I see is even things, I'm giving you, a bit of example just to drive home the point. Here only, I was just talking to one student, and she was talking about the Nelly violence that has happened, the Nelly massacre of 1983 in Assam, okay? So in my book, I have contradicted this as because it is being looked as a communal violence, because it is normally, I think it is a partition problem. We see wherever Hindu-Muslim is affected, it's looked as a communal violence, because for us, it was an anti-migrant violence. Like, because I have reasons to justify this, because there were many Bengali Hindus who were also killed. We don't talk about that, okay? The number of Muslims were more than Bengali Hindus, but it was they were also attacked. Then the Assamese Muslims went and attacked Muslim community villages, Bengali-speaking Muslim community villages, and screaming with their war cry was Allahu Akbar. They were going Allahu Akbar against Muslims, and it's only, this is a Muslim community. So these are nuances that we cannot overlook. And then, just in the run-up to the Nelly violence, there were, for about a month, there was small level violence was happening in that area. And then when you go and research, you see that the Bengali Hindus and Muslims were one day attacking the tribal villages, and the Assamese non-tribal and the tribals getting together and attacking their villages. So how do you place this, So these are things, nuances, we need to look at, and which I sometimes feel that the national media tend to, whitewash that in a way, not that they want to, but they perhaps don't understand the region. So for me, if you have to report, say a particular region, you have to read, you have to study, you have to go to the ground, you have to do those things. Like in the case of Manipur now, the two communities are fighting, okay? So communities fighting is nothing new. But for me, the biggest story, even in the NRC period in Assam, was also that lack of governance, the failure of the government system. Look at our Home Minister. He was talking about trying to, look at Manipur issue as an ethnic conflict. What is he trying to say? That these barbarians, they just keep fighting among themselves? But where is your government? Where is governance? This, for me as a journalist, that is what I need to ask. So, coming to the point about, the difference that I see is that we have this, over the last couple of years, I've been seeing there's some interest in the region, which is very welcome, which is huge, which is big. It's a big leap forward, and particularly by the digital media. But the context in many cases go missing, which I find is unfortunate, because this whole Kuki and the Meitei fight is also not just an ethnic fight, it is also has shades of migration, So there are a lot of these shades and bad governance, So it's like a kind of a perfect storm of all terrible things that have come together. So we need to look at those things. And so I hope we are on the journey, and someday we'll reach there. Thank you.
Let me answer it, because I'm not as kind as Sangeeta is, And let me answer it from what Jadhav said, I said. We earlier came to the point of look at it as a political economy question. Ask yourself, what does Maharashtra produce? How many things it produces? It's an industrial powerhouse. It has cotton, it has other pulses it produces. What does Assam produce? It produces oil, it produces coal, it produces timber. There are lots of natural resources there. What does Punjab produce? It has been feeding the country for, not now so much, but at least for half a century it fed the country at its own cost. Those plains, not only this Punjab, but that Punjab and the whole thing, where the Indus Valley was at one time, one of the most fertile plains in the world. Today you see the one belt, one road process there. You see the Charbahar port in Iran. You see the Karachi port in Pakistan. Everybody would want control on that piece of land. But what does Delhi produce? What does Delhi produce? It produces policy. And through that policy, it wants control on all these natural resources. Generations of I'm not against Delhiites, I love Delhiites, but you have to understand the role that the capital plays in a country which is as diverse as India. So one ministry will go and pass an order on this thing should happen, another will pass it, and who is there to question them now? what is happening in Andaman and Nicobar? How does the Indian Parliament get to decide that they want to put a $10 billion project on naturally fragile islands? Because contractors are making money out of it. Do you think ever that port will be built? For the next 50 years, it won't be built. But for the next 50 years, contractors will keep taking money and they'll ruin that little bird's nest and they will ruin the tribes which are there. Because Delhi has no stakes in anything. Delhi only wants money from everywhere. What is the GST regime? You know, this country was conceived as a union of states. The whole game lies in that. Is it a union? Should the emphasis be on union or should the emphasis be on states? That tells you why the media works the way it works. That tells you why narratives are created the way they are created. That tells you where power lies. That is the difference between Delhi's reporting and local reporting.
Yeah. I just want to add one more line to what Amandeep said. I fully agree with what he said. You know, just recently, I've done a story for the YI series, which is, we are calling it Manipur Tapes, which, you know, it's the voice of the allegedly of the Chief Minister of Manipur, and talking about how he'd organized all of these. And but nobody in Delhi media actually picked it up. You know, so this is what I think the Delhi media is. So, and nobody talks about it. And thankfully, the Supreme Court, on the last day of Justice Chandrachu's, I think it was his last, judgment order, he said that it needs to be probed. So I feel very vindicated, but that was also, I don't think, was getting any space.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Any
one.
last question, Ada?
My question is to Pankaj sir. Can you please brief about Narkondam Hornbill story?
Yeah, so again, it's one of those fascinating jewels of planet Earth. There's one, the Hornbill, is one little island which is an extinct volcano on which this bird is found, and that's it. So there is no other little patch of land on the planet where you find this bird. And there was some plan for setting up a radar station, and then activists and ecologists fought about it, and then that has not happened. So it's one of those little nuggets of absolute irreplaceable wealth, and there are many other creatures like this across the island. This one stands out because it is one island, one standalone island, it's an extinct volcano, and you have this bird there. It's quite a spectacular bird, and you don't find it anywhere else. So, and if that is the story you're asking, or there might be some bigger story that I'm not aware of. Yeah, there was this proposal for some defense installation, and it was not allowed to happen, fortunately.